God's grace, His mercy, and His peace is yours in your risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Pastor Beckman and family of Zion, I am thankful for the opportunity to be with you today as we celebrate 125 years of God's grace and reflect on the law and gospel ministry here that God has worked in this place. And as we get started, I do want to apologize to you. I think we're having some problems with the sound system. And also, I'm having problems with my voice for about 3.5 weeks here. I've been fighting this sinus infection thing. And for you two in the front here, I've been COVID tested twice negative. So remember when we used to be able just to be sick with regular things? You know, and so I'm going to try and get through. We've had a crazy week up at the lake, and my voice is feeling it, but what a joy to be with you here today. And, you know, to be honest with you, Richard, when you shared the theme verse with me for this 125th anniversary, I had kind of an interesting memory, and for those of you who remember me, for those of you who don't, I'll clue you in. My mind doesn't necessarily work just the same way as a lot of pastors you may know. I've got all sorts of stuff stored up here, and some of it's occasionally even helpful, and I don't know if this was. But the first thing that came to my mind, actually, as I thought of this theme verse, one generation shall commend your works to another and declare your mighty acts. Literally, and it's going to age myself, but what came to mind was an ad campaign from the mid-'80s, I believe it was. And it was for Fabergé Organics shampoo. Now, for those of you that are younger than that, you can probably Google it and find commercials. But what happened is there'd be a beautiful little spokes model on there, and she had lovely hair, and she would say, I'm going to tell my friend about it, and she'll tell someone, and the screen splits, and they'll tell someone, and the screen splits again, so there's 4, and so on, and it's 8, and it's 16, and so on, and so on, and so on. And basically it was a really neat marketing concept that one of the best ways to promote something is by what?
Word of
mouth, right? And isn't that what it really all is about when it comes to God's church? We proclaim what's been proclaimed to us. We give witness to the reality of what God can accomplish in our lives as He touches us with His grace and His peace. You know, it was 25 years ago on October 20th, 1996, that I was blessed to be in this pulpit for the 100th anniversary of Zion Lutheran Church. Now, people, you'd think in about 25 years you'd be able to find somebody a little more charismatic and interesting as a guest preacher. But since you didn't, here you go. You see, on that Sunday, your theme verse was actually a favorite of mine because it's part of it is my confirmation verse. And it was from Romans 1:16 and 17. I am not ashamed of the gospel. For it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes, to the Jew first and then to the Greek. For it is the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. As I mentioned a moment ago, commending God's work to one another is the main purpose of the church. And I can think of no higher calling for God's people than to spread the truth of His salvation to a dying world. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. because it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes. You know, I sat in my office this past week and I thought about that phrase, and I thought about Zion Lutheran Church, and I wonder how many times has that truth been proclaimed from this very pulpit over the last 25 years? And how many times were those words of truth, of salvation found in Jesus Christ alone, made visible in the baptisms at that antique baptismal font? And how many times were the truth of those words, that message of God's great love and mercy, used to restore and strengthen and heal the hearts of those who receive Christ's true body and blood here at this rail? How many lives have been touched outside these doors by the people of Zion, who have heard that word of truth and gone outside and lived that love to their fellow man? You know, when you think about it, the people of Zion have had a very long history of grace. And you've been through a lot. You've weathered through wars. You've made it through hard economic times. You've seen your children grow up and move on. You've seen many faithful brothers and sisters in the faith be called home to their heavenly rest. You've seen pastors come. You've seen pastors go. You've seen times when people thought you should just give it up, close the doors, and walk away. And you see times when the Spirit has caused growth and bring new life. You know, when you think about it, times and the situations may have changed over the last century and a quarter, but there's been one thing that's remained constant, and that is the message of the gospel of God's salvation in Jesus Christ. That's remained the strength and the support of His church. Now, I don't know if you've been watching. Have you been watching? Any of you pay attention to what's going on in the world around us? Do you? Yeah. Do you? It's my opinion that the current and future generations need to hear what we have to say. You think about it. We are living in an increasingly post-Christian society. In 2018 and 2019, an organization called the Pew Research Group did some studies. And their studies revealed that about 65% of Americans identify as Christian. That was about a 10% decrease from a decade earlier, 10 years earlier. And see, it gets a little bit tricky when you look at it, because that really isn't a solid religious organization that's doing that. And what they term as a Christian, well, there's a lot of leeway in there. And it's in my opinion that if you actually look at it and you consider what solid biblical confessional Christianity is, the numbers are probably 20 to 25% lower of people who actually truly identify as Christians in our nation. You know, we live in a world where even Christians live with a credo of anything goes. If it feels good, it's got to be right. Consider all the things that are now acceptable in society. You know, you ever heard of anything called gender dysphoria? You know, the term now, I've got to go look up some of these things now when they talk about xenophobic and all that kind of stuff. I got to look that stuff up. They're making up new terminology to classify us. You have people that struggle with gender issues. There's, of course, We've been struggling for years with the egocentric, me-centered attitudes of people. Consider all the non-biblical life choices that are all around us and being made by so many of our friends and neighbors and family members. On top of that, I think we as a Christian church are allowing ourselves to be silenced. Silenced for fear of being called one of the many different names that are bandied about by our media and the world out there. And people, don't fight your battles on Facebook. You're not going to win. And you're not going to change anybody's opinion. You know, it's a crazy mixed up world. Yeah, literally yesterday I officiated over the funeral of two extremely dear friends, faithful members of my congregation that were murdered in their home. You know, it was a purely senseless act. And, well, I never thought that the evening news would become my reality. That's the world we live in. And does that world need the message that God has called for us, that He has empowered us to proclaim? And I would say yes. And your theme this morning is a reminder that one generation shall commend your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. Even though the world is full of chaos, is God still in control? Yes. Is He? Yeah. Do you really believe that?
Yes.
Can God still accomplish what He ordains, even in the spite of sinful men all around us?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes. First to the Jew and then to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. Honestly, people, I can't tell you how I could make it through. The challenges, the opportunities, I call challenges opportunities, that God has allowed to hit my life, and especially last week, without knowing that truth. That in spite of all the sin, the evil, the ugliness in the world, God still saves. And God still provides. Where would you be if you didn't share that faith? Do you believe that the righteous shall live by faith? Do you? I mean, do you?
Yeah.
Get vocal, people. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey. I know it's warm in here, but don't fall asleep on me. Do you believe that the gospel is the power of God for the salvation of everyone who believes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Catch it on.
I tried.
That's good. Well, if that's the case, what are we supposed to do about it? Well, we share it. I've got to be honest with you. When I was blessed to serve you as a brand new pastor, fresh out of seminary, I was a little different than I am today. Before you go there, I know some of you are thinking, yeah, you're a lot older, a lot heavier, you know, you've had all those health issues, but that's not what I'm talking about. Where I was different is coming fresh out of seminary, I was on fire to change the world, and I thought we, the church, could change the world, you know, and it's not because I've become jaded. But I don't know if it's our job to change the world anymore. I don't know if I believe that. But I do believe that God can work through people like you and me to change lives. World changing, that's God's thing. people changing, life changing. That's what God does through us. As we live out, as we share, as we commend from one generation to another the mighty acts that God has done. People of Zion, friends and family, I pray that God would bless you, that He would keep you, and that He might continue to work through His family called Zion Lutheran Church for many years to come as you share the marvelous works of the Lord. That's the only hope, what God can do. In His mighty name, amen.